Morning all. Morning. Good. I'm going to say, oh, you probably know who I am. This gentleman to my left will introduce himself in a moment. We actually sound kind of alike, which is quite scary, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Sound more like you after about 8 pints.
Now he's just stolen part of my story. So there we go. Okay. This title of this deck was actually a placeholder in the agenda while we worked out what we were going to talk about. I woke up this morning and said, bugger, we never changed the agenda. So we've just called it the Mark and Steve Show. So the idea is to wake you up first thing on this Wednesday morning. There is coffee at the back. There are bacon rolls and veggie rolls for anybody who wants them. Please don't leave them on the table at the back. Okay, because somebody will have to eat them, and obviously Steve doesn't need any help. Okay.
Why did I sign up for this?
So the reason this came about is we had a change in the agenda, and I needed something I needed something entertaining. So I just WhatsApped Steve and said, "Are you up for this?" And he went, "Yes." That was it. It was in the agenda.
I didn't know what I was up for, but I did say yes.
Obviously, we're trying to raise a lot of money for the charities. Yesterday we raised somewhere around £2,000 in charity donations and raffle ticket sales. But today is the big day, okay? So, if you're not in a session, a quick run into Toaster to the cash point machine, empty it, bring it back with you, or come with all your credit cards and debit cards for the dinners tonight. Steve, your intro.
Fantastic. So, Mark, as he says, invited me to do this. I don't know why I've signed up to co-present with this gentleman, but just by way of introduction, my name's Stephen Dickens. Used to work for CA back in the late 90s, and then spent 10 years at IBM doing various roles. Highlights from that: launched the Open Mainframe project as one of the product managers to launch Linux One back in 2015. So had some fun there. Then moved to about 2.5 years ago to a research and analysis firm called the Futurum Group. So what we do is we work with big firms, small firms, on advisory, on creating content, on working with them on research. If you think along the lines of a Gartner, an IDC, or a Forrester, those are the guys we're coming for. There's a bit of a humble brag on there, I suppose, or maybe not that humble.
It's not a humble brag.
It's not a humble brag.
He's rated in the top 10 analysts, all the ones out there, which is quite surprising for a black country boy.
I know.
We'll come on to that.
It's amazing where you can get from and to, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they get ranked on a daily basis, which is kind of intimidating. But I think number 9 was where I was yesterday.
So for those of you who don't know, Mark Wilson, been a mainframer for a long time. I'm the region manager and conference manager at GSE, and I'm also the technical director at Vitali. I am a techie, okay? So, Steve and I were chatting when we first met many, many years ago, and I said to him, "You know, your accent changes after a few beers." I said, "Where are you actually from?" And he says, "Well, I grew up in 24 Channon Drive here." I said, "Really?" I said, "Because I grew up in Greenfield Road here." And it's 7.6 miles apart. And we both ended up on the stage doing this kind of stuff all over the world. I haven't lost my accent, okay? Steve has softened his a lot because of working for IBM and CA/Broadcom and then
proper companies where you've got to be a grown-up, you know, those types of places.
There's a great benefit of being your own boss, because I've got nobody to tell me what to do. So this area, if you were to put a sheet over all of that, it's an area known as the Black Country in the West Midlands. We are so proud of this. We have our own flag. Okay? This is the Black Country flag. Why is it called the Black Country? Because of all of the heavy industry that was there. The story goes that if you were on a high-rise building and looked out, there was no green. There was nothing bright or pretty. All you had was soot from all of the foundries and the steelworks, and that's how it gets its name. And that's where we started our journey.
Well, do you want to go back? So the centre of the flag is a glass factory cone where they make glass factories. So my father used to work for Stuart Crystal, which is represented in the centre of that flag.
So it was designed properly. I actually have a little garage at home, a little unit where I store a couple of motorbikes. I have one of these hanging in the garage.
I need to
If
get one.
somebody comes in and goes, oh, it's a Black Country flag, they get 20% discount straight away. So I'm going to hand you over for the next few slides to 8-Bit Steve, okay?
So
He's an analyst.
I didn't know about the 8-bit part of this. Mark added this for me. So, session today is called Two Truths and a Lie. So I get to do the two truths. Mark gets to do the lie segment. I think there's probably something that's appropriate there, but I'll move on. So, really the concept of this presentation and what I'm going to talk about is how the narrative in the market is cloud is growing, mainframe is dying, and how that's wrong, in my opinion. The fact that I think you can have two truths be both true at the same time. We can have a mainframe platform that's growing, and I'll talk about some of the data that IBM and some of the other data that I've seen, but you can also see the cloud growing. So I think there's some concepts here, and so I looked up when I was pulling together this presentation, is there a word for two truths being true at the same time? And apparently, and I literally learnt this, it's an antony, where both things can be true at the same time. So, we, as a firm, cover what the big tech vendors are doing and some of their announcements, and we always find it's best to follow the money. So I get the opportunity to go to some of these sessions, regularly listening to earnings calls. And the reason why I do this is because you get an insight into the strategy. Nothing drives strategy better than where the money comes from. So, obviously, IBM announced the Z16, what was that, February last year? So we're well and truly into the cycle now. Having worked in this business previously when I was at IBM, it's a while into that cycle. So, two parts of the way IBM reports its numbers are relatively important for how we look at the mainframe business. These are directly taken from the transcript of their earnings. Transaction processing for people in this room, that's KIX and DB2 and some of the mainframe software. And then you look at the Z Systems growth, they actually report that and mention it separately because how fundamental it is to IBM's overall position. This late in the cycle, and Greg will know this from his time when running the business, to be this late in the cycle and still seeing that growth is impressive. So, as I say, tracking the numbers, you track what's going on. This is publicly announced information exactly from the transcripts of their SEC filing for their earnings. Significant growth. I asked IBM for some charts. I'm asking IBM for some more data, so if Rick Schoonmaker's in the audience, you owe me some better answers than these stock answers. But I think the significant things here is we're not fully through the cycle of Z16, and already it's fully realized what they realized in the Z15 cycle. I was at IBM when they launched the Z15. That was considered the best launch they'd had in a while. So we're on a trajectory where this platform is still growing. I continually ask IBM for more details beyond MIPS capacity because I think it's a terrible measure for how this platform is growing. But these are the numbers they gave me. I think from a growth perspective, 3x growth from 2012 through to 22 is impressive. Now, hidden in this is an exponential growth of Linux on the platform. So you've got to account for that when you think of how you look at MIPS. The largest clients by MIPS aren't ZOS clients. The largest client in the world is a Linux-only client by MIPS. So there's some hidden things in these numbers. But I still think it's directionally showing how the platform is growing. So, some data here. Got this from the recent Kyndryl survey that they did. I'm going to pull out over the next few charts some survey data. Most organizations surveyed, 90% in fact, indicate that mainframe remain essential to their business. The other key point here was the modernization, 9% increase in profitability. Now, I think the key takeaway here is that your mainframe is still a key part of your shop. But the other piece for me, as I talk to vendors, is you can't stand still. You've got to be modernizing. You've got to be taking the platform forward. There's lots of data out there, and it's relatively conflicting. I talk about Kyndryl's data, talk about BMC's data. There's a number of different data points here. But I think what we're starting to see is a change in sentiment in the industry that mainframe is going to remain essential and is still a long-term component of a hybrid cloud strategy. We were in the executive track yesterday, Greg and a number of us chatting about where we kind of see the evolution of cloud and where that's been from a financial services point of view. We're 15 years into public cloud, and it's certainly now, from all my conversations with vendors like AWS and Google and Microsoft and the likes of HPE and Dell and Lenovo, so take yourself out of purely the mainframe-centric world, where we see is that hybrid has won. Even those public cloud providers are acknowledging that hybrid is the way forward. So I think, and that's probably happened over the last 3 or 4 years. So wind back 5 or 6 years, public cloud was the answer. What's the question? We've seen that change and evolve. But I think, and this is from a piece of research that we did with the team at OpenText, I think people are going to look at options. They're going to consider options. And I think for this room, the thing to think about is maybe you've been fed by vendors in the mainframe space that replatforming is hard. We heard cautionary tales as part of the keynote yesterday. I spent 3 half-an-hour sessions chatting to the team at AG Insurance in Belgium, and they'd moved 6,000 MIPS. The guy did say it was a nightmare project, but they'd successfully migrated. What was behind that migration? A need to innovate and be more agile. So it is possible to move, but I think what I picked up from this conversation was what was behind it was a desire to be more agile, to modernize the application, leverage microservices, and be a better platform provider to the business. You can achieve that on-prem with your own mainframe, but you've got to be willing to open up and be able to take that step. Otherwise, you will be able to be moved and the pressure will come. So the technology stack, I think, to move has changed. So that puts further stress on people in this room, I think, to be able to adapt. If you're wanting to be that mainframe shop that just keeps doing what you've always done, then the alternatives are starting to get better. So there's a cautionary tale here, I think. But I think there's some tension still. We keep getting told as mainframers that we've got to look at application development, we've got to look at agile, we've got to look at CI/CD pipelines, we've got to look at how we adapt. And yes, we have. Yes, you've got to do all those things. But I think you've got to push back on some of the terms. You know, monolithic applications are bad. We need to move to microservices. There's some strength to that, and I agree with some of that. But I don't think you should always just buy into the narrative that some of the things that we've always done are wrong. Hard to see the image here, but this is from Amazon Prime Video, and I put the link here in the presentation. This is a great blog to read on the Amazon website, written by the Amazon technical team, who took the Prime Video app, broke it into microservices, saw the latency get a lot worse, and have migrated it back into a monolithic app. So if this is Amazon running their services on their cloud, and they're moving back to a monolith to improve performance. I think you can say that there's some tension in some of the narrative that we're being fed. Monolithic applications are the right type of application for certain types of workloads and certain types of requirements. So don't be afraid to defend what you've got. You still have to modernize it, you still have to move it forward, but don't buy into microservices good, monolithic is bad. There's more nuance to it than that. As I say, mainframe's growing, public cloud can be growing at the same time. These are from the last quarter's revenue, Google, Microsoft, and AWS, all still growing in strong double digits. AWS slowing a little bit, but that's the law of large numbers, 23.1 billion. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the Microsoft Intelligent Cloud, which I probably wouldn't all classify as cloud, but that's a different story. I think Google, I was at their event, Google Cloud Next, lots of upside from those guys coming when it comes to AI. The data on the left is from our intelligence and some of our intelligence dashboards. We're going to be seeing AI compute grow at over 25% compound annual growth rate through 2027. So I think be thinking about what you're doing from an AI perspective. Embrace that conversation because your business will. Be trying to actively explore that technology from a mainframe because this growth is going to be fueled by AI over the next 3 or 4 years. And as stewards of the platform within your shop, you should be looking to find that workload and get it onto the platform. So great study if you want to understand the cost demographics of the public cloud. Andreessen Horowitz, one of the big venture capital firms, pulled together a report, the $1 trillion paradox of the public cloud. What they did is they had their own researchers go and talk to the companies that they invest in, pull the data out and look at those costs. The one here is the unit economics of Dropbox. It's a very dense report. It's about 40 pages plus. It is very well written, and I would highly recommend that you take a look at this. I think what we're seeing, and we're having this conversation in the executive track just yesterday, is that the narrative that the public cloud is cheaper has changed. I think realization has stepped in. There's a reason why IBM paid $4 billion for Apptio as a FinOps company. That market is expanding. People are looking at their cloud costs and trying to optimize. So, highly recommend you read this report. Try to pull a couple of data points out of here. I think at scale, there's some challenge points to the public cloud perspective. I think if you're running applications at scale, you need to understand this unit economics style conversation to be stewards of the platform, the mainframe within your shop. You need to push back and understand the conversation around scalability. Lots of people are moving to the cloud. They've moved to the cloud. They may be there for 5 or 6 years. Push back and ask the question, have you seen those cloud costs go down over the last 5 or 6 years? Yes, the fact that they're technically able to go down and be elastic is one thing. Are you actually seeing those costs go down? Are you seeing workloads move up and down? Or are you just putting workloads that have got a static profile into the cloud, but thinking that the cost may go down? I don't think they will. As I say, highly recommend this. It's a detailed read, but it's well worth checking out. So I asked IBM for some information about where they see the future. I think it's good to sort of counterpoint this as we look through some of the data and look at where we see the industry going. IBM doesn't blow its own trumpet enough. IBM beat Intel to 7 nanometer with the production chip. So if somebody's pushing back and saying, oh, the mainframe's old, mainframe's not innovating, just ask them which processor made it into production first, an Intel processor at 7 nanometer or the Telum processor at 7 nanometer. We shouldn't be ashamed of where this platform is going. I think we've got to be pushing on IBM for them to continue to do more and to do it faster. But I think there's some strong heritage here and strong heritage of innovation. I think the key takeaway from me from this chart is there's 3 generations of the mainframe currently in some stage of development by IBM. So if anybody's pushing back and saying, oh, this platform's not been invested in, there's no innovation, chatting to Rick, who was here, if you see Rick while he's around, Rick's the guy leading the product strategy for IBM. There's 3 versions currently in some form of development. So I think that should leave us with a strong feeling that we're investing and putting our careers into the right type of platform. So as I sort of start to wrap up here, an analogy I tend to use, and I think you've seen this sort of tension throughout the presentation, is that all types of workloads need all types of platforms. So I kind of use the analogy, and a lot of people have sort of picked it up from me over the years, of as you talk to your enterprise architects and those people within your organizations who are making workload placement decisions, you'll start to see from the uneducated and the sort of biased people in those roles, you've got to move to this. You've got to move to public cloud. You've got to move to x86. You've got to move to hybrid. You've got to move to microservices. And the reason why I put the chart up is here. If you look at cars as x86 and rentals cars as public cloud, most of us in the room have got a car or 2 cars on the drive. But we also take other forms of transport, whether that's coming on a plane, taking a train, commercial planes. I unfortunately didn't come here from the US on my private plane. It just didn't reach, unfortunately. It's only sort of domestic. But no, all joking aside, I think the point here is workloads require different characteristics. You should be working with those people who are making workload placement decisions or in your organization and saying, what are the characteristics of the workload? A rubric I use for these types of conversation is rank your workloads on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, for availability, performance, scalability, TCO, environmentals. Look at those characteristics and then say, where should this workload be sitting? If you're looking for a workload that requires 6 or 7 nines, putting it on a public cloud where you've got an SLA of 3 nines is not going to be the answer. If you're looking for the ultimate in security, the ultimate in performance, be starting to think through, and we're seeing this even come through in the public cloud providers, chip innovation, then moving towards different chip architectures, even within the public cloud, to accommodate different workloads. I spent some time with the AWS team around Inferentia and Trainium, their in-house processors that they're developing, custom silicon. Google with TPUs. There's an acknowledgement even within what we'd all call distributed computing in this room, that no one chip architecture suits every workload. You've got to be taking a more balanced view than that. So I think maybe using this analogy to be able to, people always understand the car analogy in my mind, and it always resonates. Being able to take it out of my platform's better than your platform, my chip architecture is better than your chip architecture, and just reframing the discussion. So I talked about sort of 2 truths and a lie. I haven't even looked at my watch. Am I on time? If you haven't watched the 1995 movie, The Usual Suspects, I don't know what you're doing. This is literally my favorite movie. I've probably watched it over 30 times and I still don't see the ending until the ending happens. I know fully well what's going to happen. I know exactly what the last 10 minutes brings, but every time I watch this movie, it still brings a smile to my eye because I don't see the ending. Greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. I think there's some analogy there to the mainframe platform. I think we've kind of convinced the world that this is the secure platform and that we don't need to do much. Mark's coughing. This is my segue. So the two truths from my presentation were that both the mainframe can be growing and the cloud can be growing. I think now, as I hand over to Mark, we get on to the lie segment, which is the mainframe is the most secure server.
Get off the stage. Thank you very much, Steve. So I'm not actually going to disagree with Steve too much because it is very much a hybrid world we live in. Now, you saw Steve's image, 8-bit Steve, okay? Steve's an analyst, okay? Of course, I had to be 64-bit Mark because I'm a techie, okay? So, and we do poke fun at each other quite a lot. But yeah, for me, the real phrase is the mainframe is the most securable platform in the world. And what worries me the most, and why do I worry about this, is complacency. Almost falling asleep at the wheel with some folks. We still have conversations today with people and they say, yeah, it's a mainframe, it's okay, we don't need to worry. Yeah, it's like this. I found this, I quite like this. Yeah, complacency is the enemy of both security and progress. Yep. And that's what we do see. It's changed a lot now. It's changed over the last sort of 5, 10, 15 years, but we're still not as good as we could be from a security perspective when we think about mainframes. And I found this one. Ransacked the house because they put the guard dog to sleep, yeah? Who was in the bar here last night after midnight? And you notice my hand never went up, okay? I know there were a couple of folks in here. Yes, I know who you are, okay? But you know, if you wanted to, you know, get at me, yeah, and, you know, I'm the systems programmer or the security administrator, there's two things that would possibly work, yeah? Motorcycles or beer or both, yeah? But yeah, the bad actors don't target organisations, they target individuals. We let complacency rule. Yeah, some of the stuff that Brian Marshall talked about, some of the stuff that Phil Buccalow talked about, you know, about all the different security challenges we have. We need to be on our front foot. But to me, when we start talking about mainframes and we start talking about what Steve was talking about, this hybrid world, it's all about the data. Because believe it or not, we've got a lot of it, okay? Who remembers this T-shirt? Okay? This was a GSE T-shirt that we did, but we stole it from somebody else. But that T-shirt said that the mainframe holds 70% of the world's business data. And 70% of a lot of data is a lot of data. How well do you think we protect it? And then when I was doing some research for a presentation I did a long time ago, yeah, I came across this phrase, dark data. Dark data? What's dark data? Well, dark data's all the stuff that we've got that we've forgotten about. Because of all the data that's out there, the analysts tell us that only 15% of it is live. Some of it's redundant, obsolete and trivial. Some of it is dark data just out there. Who backs up their laptop regularly? Who encrypts all those backups and puts a password on them and zips them and makes sure they're super secure? How many backups do you think you've got on a mainframe? You've got replicated data, you've got full volume data, you've got application backups, yeah, all the different backup technologies we've got out there. How well do we know where all that data is and how well do we know it's secured? So to me, when we start looking at this hybrid world that we live in, yeah, data is absolutely everything, okay? And one of the reasons I worry about this is because of the dark web. Anybody ever been out there and had a look around? Anybody ever bought anything? Okay? But There's a lot of speculation and a lot of myth and mystery about this, the shady underworld where all the hackers live, okay? There's some truth to that. But it's not as bad as you would first think, okay? Because when you actually look at this, the popular view of the world is the stuff that we see, the BBC News, Facebook, print test, all this is the surface web, and all of this is either the deep web or the dark web. It's actually the other way around. That's what the world really looks like, yeah? It is a dark, shady place down here, and I'll show you some of that in a moment. But there's so much stuff here on the clear web, yeah, that's easily accessible. Listen to the session from Brian Marshall last night, a publicly available URL that you could just change the almost customer ID number and just get to data after data after data, millions and millions of records here. Do we have to worry about what's down here? Absolutely. Okay? But there is the place I call the very dark web. And this is where I think it starts to... It's the bit that we should be concerned about. Because you can go buy loads of stuff out there, okay? Loads of different wikis and stuff like that. Database. Oh, Hitman Network. Okay? There's tons and tons of stuff out there. Now, I'm a big rock music fan. I like AC/DC, yeah? And there's a couple of tracks that I think they were looking at the dark web when they wrote the lyrics to this as Hitman for Hire. But the very dark web, it can be a very, very nasty place. You can go and buy passports. You can use what they call an online market. It's like an eBay or Amazon. They have feedback on here. Your stuff appeared in my PO box and it was good SH1T. Yeah? That's what they do. Yeah, you can buy all kinds of stuff. But what you can also do is buy data. But we don't need to worry because we run mainframes. We are secure, aren't we? Come on. We've got to get, I've got to be mindful of the audience, okay? But we have literally got to get our head out of our backsides and get our head out of the sand because people are super, super interested in what we've got, okay? And if the mainframe is truly the system of record for large organisations, yeah, we have the data. Therefore, they want our data because it's big money. How much? How much do you think a credit card or a or a debit card with the bank balance costs on the dark web? Okay? Hold that thought. Hold that thought for a second. There's a TV advert running in the UK at the moment for a rather large bank. And one of the comments is they've got 56 million clients. 56 million clients. They've got a mainframe. I'm pretty certain most of those 50 million customers of theirs will have a record on a database. 56 million. Between $80 and $120, $80 and $120, depending on the bank balance. Okay? That's really, really inflated. If you've got mass numbers, it's about $20 per card. 16-digit PAN, expiry date, 3-character CVV, $20. Who's good with maths? $20 times by 56 million. Do you think it's worth doing? Yeah. Do you think you could live comfortably on 20 times $56 million? Not even I could spend that much money on motorbikes. Okay? But when you think about the mainframe and you think about this hybrid world, yeah, we have to think about the data because it's the data that's important. Okay? I sat with a client a few months ago and they said, Mark, this pervasive encryption, why do we need to do it? And I kind of looked at him and I said, I'm sure it's 2023. I'm sure it's 2023. Yeah. Seriously, why? He says, well, so why wouldn't you do it? He said, well, I've got all this hard drive encryption built into the hardware. All my network connections are all SSL'd. I'm running SSL 1.3 and all this TLS 1.3. Yeah, we're right out there. I said, what happens if somebody just steals the data? What do you mean? I said, well, if they copy it, yeah, the hardware's going to deliver it to them in the clear. The network's going to deliver it to them in the clear. I said, surely you've got to be deploying pervasive encryption. Because yeah, the data, if it gets stolen today, is worthless to the attacker. Now, there are stories that they say they are stacking all this data up until we've broken all the algorithms and quantum computing is going to cause us all these security problems. I'm not too sure just yet, okay? But don't move the data, secure it, okay? We talk about this hybrid world. We have got the biggest and best, most securable data server on the planet, yeah? Just open it up, make the data available, yeah, but make it available securely. There's tons of options. This is actually an IBM slide, and I put a really gratuitous thing over the thing there that says ZOS Connect, because I didn't want to just say ZOS Connect. But, you know, you've got all of these different servers and applications and devices using this technology to get to the mainframe's data at the back end. So don't lift and shift it. Make it available, but make it available securely. And what does that securely mean? Well, it means things like pervasive encryption. It means things like multi-factor authentication, doing security assessments and pen tests, making certain that you do as much as you possibly can to protect that data. Because this is where the value is. Has anybody done the maths yet? $20 times 56 million for me? Somebody's got to tell me the answer before the end of the session. Yeah? And say that again, sorry? $1.3 billion. Okay, I'll have the 0.3. You lot can share the 1. Okay? But seriously, yeah, the people who perpetrate, yeah, sort of the data exfiltration hacks, whether it be a ransomware, whether they actually steal it and go and sell it, they don't do it because they want to, okay? They do it for the money, and it's just about the money. They don't care that, you know, this is a hospital. They don't care that it's welfare information. They don't care it's, you know, a bank's financial information. They want it and they want to sell it. And that's where they make all of their money. It's super, super easy today. Back in the day, we used to talk about ransomware in the early days and think it's very difficult. The technology barriers to be able to affect a ransomware attack, the barriers to entry were quite high. You needed how to code. You needed to know how to hack. Not anymore. Find your way to the dark web and just buy a ransomware toolkit for hire. $20 a month, $50 a month, $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month, that's a lot of money. Yeah, but you've just sold 1.3 billion worth, yeah? 12 grand, 24 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, yeah? These are nation states. The thing that worries me the most, and Steve put it in his presentation, AI, and AI, yeah? We won't be sat there doing this hacking and trying to steal this data. It'll be AI. It'll be robots doing all of this stuff. And that's why when we do this, we've got to make sure that it's absolutely secure, and we do as much as we possibly can to protect ourselves and prepare ourselves. We quite often talk about, well, they'll get in eventually. Yes, they probably will. But if you have done as much as you can back here with all of this data to make sure it's secure and you've got proper processes around it, being able to recover shouldn't be that difficult, but it will probably be expensive, okay? It's just the nature of the beast. And we shouldn't also forget about the network. The thing that we're hearing most of at the minute from the regulators, PCI 4 is talking about network segmentation and all of this stuff. There's a IBM security event in Amsterdam a few weeks ago. This was mentioned several times. Yeah? Network segmentation, don't forget the network. Isolate the network. So if somebody does get in, you've got, at least got them contained in a perimeter. Okay? That's what we're always talking about. It's a hybrid world. We've got no choice. okay? We as platform stewards, and I quite like that phrase from Steve, yeah, platform stewards, we need to make sure that when we open these things up, yeah, that we actually do it securely. Has anybody ever sat there on a Friday afternoon and a change request comes in for the weekend and says, oh, Mark, can you make all these RAC F4, ACF2 or top secret changes? Yeah, why? Well, we're putting a new version of the application in on Sunday. We forgot about security. Really? So how did you test it? Oh, we disabled security in all of the testing. Yeah, but we're going to implement the security controls when we go into production. I don't think so. Yeah, don't forget about it. If you are involved in security and audit, and we're talking about, you know, these opening up the platform and this hybrid world, make sure that you get security on the agenda really, really early, because it needs to be planned for, it needs to be tested, and we need to make sure it works. Yeah, people get things wrong. Our biggest security weakness is everybody in this room. Okay. We all get the email, don't we? It was mentioned yesterday. I've got $100 million to give away, yeah? And then I saw an image of a guy sat in a house in Nigeria with $100 million, yeah, sat on the floor saying, I've been trying to give it away for 20 years, yeah? But we've all received those emails. I had one of those text messages about 14 months ago. Hi, Dad. I've dropped my telephone down the toilet. This is my new number. Really? Yeah, and it's off my middle daughter, and she's a nurse. She would never, ever do that, yeah? She would phone me from the phone that she's got. So I messaged back, which one of you is this? I've got 3 daughters. She said, the response came back, guess. I thought, oh, I've got a live one here. So I went, so one of my colleagues, I can't see if he's in the room, Gary was in the room, and somebody else, I said, I think I've got a scammer. So I went back, Zoe, yes, you're correct. And we had a few more interactions. And it was, can you send me some money? I need to pay for a holiday. Yeah, sure, no problem. We were laughing about the fact that this was going on. Yeah, can you send it to this account? Yeah. And I can't remember the name, but it was like Stavros Dickens, yeah, this address and this really strange account number. And she wanted something like about £3,500 to pay for a holiday. I'm thinking, £3,500 on a holiday. She's a nurse. She earns £25,000 a year. She's not going on a £3,500 holiday. Hang on a minute. If I give her the money, so we've had this interaction, and in the end, you know, of course, you block it. But I screenshot all of the messages, and I'll turn it into a presentation one day. But my point is, we are constantly battling this, and you know, people don't target organisations. Typically, they target the person to get to the organisation, because we are the weak link. Yeah, cyber security training, audits, pen tests, assessments, you know, all kinds of stuff. Be open, but do it securely. Yeah, that's the whole idea. Because believe it or not, it is actually much easier to do it online these days than walking into a bank with a mask on and a bag and saying, "Give me all the cash." You don't need to do that. Yeah. I mean, look at what's going to happen tonight at the dinners, yeah? If you've got cash, great. If you haven't, give us your credit card. You're paid, whatever happens, yeah? But this is the world that we live in. And here's the most scary part of the work and the research that I do. And that is, most of the security analysts who talk about enterprise-wide cyber security say to us they're probably already in your network, yeah, because we've been too slow to get some of these controls out. And if we're being asked to open up our mainframe and deliver our data in a much more hybrid manner, then it just makes for an interesting time. Okay, interesting time. So it is a hybrid world. Okay, I hope we haven't got anybody with epilepsy. I'll take that one off. Yeah, I know. See, I've got 2 buttons here, Dougie. See, one says backwards, one says forwards. Yeah, and they work really well. But what surprises me is the backwards one's red for some reason. Yeah. Okay. But this, by the way, this is the biggest clicker remote I've ever had in my life, yeah? And I just know if Dougie over there, yeah, heckles like he normally does, I could probably hit him with this from a distance. Anyway, my point is, and really to echo what Steve said, you know, it is a hybrid world. Cloud is growing, mainframe is growing. Again, agreeing with Steve, I think you've got to look at some of the numbers when it says mainframe is growing. Yeah? Is it really traditional ZOS, or is it more Linux? Where are we seeing all of the growth? But it really doesn't matter. I'll take that off, it's a bit distracting. It really doesn't matter. We are going to have to open up the platform, but you have to think about doing it securely. So I'm going to ask Steve to pop back up, just in case there are any further comments or anybody has any questions.
I can grab my tea now.
You can grab his cup of tea. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Eat the bacon rolls or the veggie rolls, okay? Grab a tea or coffee. Be back here in 12 minutes' time and we'll have the keynote from Greg. Thank you.